Good afternoon, my pillow people, my beautiful pillow people. Hello, Danny G. Is in the house. This is so exciting. I mean, one, the Pillow, two, Royal Ballet at the Pillow, and then three, I get to talk to one of my favorite artistic directors going. I want you to welcome Artistic Director of the Royal Ballet, Mr. Kevin O'Hare. So this is historic. I mean, it's a big word, but it is. And I know that the Pillow means something to us in the States. We know that it is a legendary festival. It has a lot of history. We're sitting in the archives. Can you tell me, Kevin, what does the Pillow mean to you, and why would you be wanting to bring the Royal Ballet here specifically?
It's lovely to be here now, and it's nice and cool as well here. It's really interesting for, I was sort of into dance from a very early age, from five-year-old. And so you had all those books, all the different books around the world of ballet and all of this. There was even one called Princess Tina, which was a ballet book, which wasn't really for boys, but, it had all the pictures in there of the different companies around the world. And so I knew I already heard of Jacob's Pillow as a young person, And so it was something that was always there. It seemed constant as a place where things happened. And so over the years, I've heard of different, and of course there's been more festivals around the world and in the States as well. But this always felt like the place where it all began. And I felt when the idea came for us to come here, I felt we should really make it happen, because especially as the Royal Ballet had never been there, and you think about the history of the classical ballet companies that have been here, the Royal Danish Ballet, for instance, this was a place where they were first seen ever in the United States, So I think that was really important to me. Obviously, the United States is very important to the ballet, the Royal Ballet. It was really the place that put us on the map when we were in 1949, after we opened the Royal Opera House after the war with Sleeping Beauty, and then the sort of few years later came to the old Met and performed Sleeping Beauty there, and it was a sensation, and everybody, but that put us on the map as we were a company to reckon with, which hadn't been, at the time it was very much about the Russian companies and then the companies in America. So I think it's a double for us, really being here, the home of sort of creativity and internationalism, actually, and then also America.
So one of the things that I find really special about the Pillow is not only does it bring all this dance to the community, but the other thing, thanks to Norton Owen, this archive is here, and it has preserved everything that has happened here and everything that is happening here. And one of the things that the Pillow tries to do in curation is to draw through lines through what has happened and the people who have come through here. And so there is a long history of the Royal Ballet and people of the Royal Ballet sort of like weaving through the Pillow, right? I was wondering about that, like when you came and saw the connections, how did it amplify your desire to bring the company here, and then did that in turn inform what you decided to bring as programming?
Yeah, exactly. It was so fantastic. I came this time last year, at the end of the festival, and met Norton, who is amazing. I don't know where he is, but he's amazing. What he's done here is fantastic. And when we joke about people that love ballet, sometimes we call them bunheads. And my inner bunhead came out when I came to here and saw all the wonderful archives and things that I didn't know. And so there was a very something quite personal for me, because Alicia Markovo was somebody that was quite important in my life, as well as the Royal Ballets. As Pam said at the beginning of the performance today, she was the first prima ballerina of the Royal Royal Ballet. It was then the Vic Wells Ballet. But also when I started to train, one of the first ever summer schools in England was in Yorkshire. A man called David Gale started a summer school there, and I was living in Yorkshire. And so I went to this summer school, and Alicia Markova was there teaching me when I was 11 years old. And Anton Dolin, I was saying earlier to some friends that are here, Anton Dolin was there teaching me, and he even used to take me out shopping and tell there was all these antique shops in the place, and he taught me about jewelry and pearls and all of these things, and it's I sort of got that feeling when looking back on it. It's like when I read stories about Anton Dolin with the Ballet Russe and Diaghilev, and Diaghilev was trying to teach his young dancers about life as well as and all the arts, not just one bit of the ballet and the ballet steps. So already there was that fantastic connection, and then there's things like the Nijinsky connection. She was famously came and staged 2 works for the Royal Ballet in the 60s, Les Noces and Les Biches. And at the same time, she was actually coming here and teaching and staging works as well. So there's these lovely through lines that really felt important to recognize. So on the outdoor stage, if you're coming tonight, you'll see that there's the first solo is Les Rendezvous, which is a role that was one of the first ballets Sir Frederick Ashton, our founder choreographer, created, and Alicia Markova was the ballerina for that. So that solo was created on her, and so you see that tonight. And then I thought I would put a little bit of the hostess from Les Biches in there as well to see that line and those connections. And I think it's really important. And over the years as well, some of our associated choreographers like Wayne, like Christopher, works of theirs have been seen here. And I think it's amazing when you dig into it how many connections there are.
It is, and what I find really interesting about the program is that there's a beautiful arc that shows, like, if you've never seen the Royal Ballet, you've really given us a taste of everything that is in the repertory. Now, I want to ask you 2 questions about the dancers. Mm-hmm. One, how, in a company as large as the Royal Ballet, do you decide who you bring to the pillow with what works?
I wanted to bring our Americans, so I thought it was really important because it's lovely when you've got family and people around and see you perform live. So that was very much on my list, and we started really with I really wanted to bring Secret Things. I thought it was a really important connection again with Pam Tanowitz, an American choreographer who's actually really made her mark with the Royal Ballet, and so that started one of the group with the younger dancers that were in that. And yeah, it was hard. There's 104 dancers in the Royal Ballet, and I think we've got 22 or 23. So yeah, it was tough to choose, and I wanted some principal dancers, and of course Sarah Lamb, great ballerina with the company, and she's of course from Boston, and so that was really important. And I'd love to say I really planned it like this, but I think it's lovely that she's sort of doing Wielden, McGregor and Balanchine. It just shows the range of her work and what she does, and seeing her up close is so fantastic. So I was thrilled that she was able to come. So I think it's, and we're actually probably going to do something similar next year with going to 2 places, going to Korea and Italy. So I've promised the company I'm try and share the love and get them. But of course, it was interesting. I think the dancers felt it a little bit. It's only a week since we finished Swan Lake at the Opera House, and so that was the end of the proper Royal Ballet season. And so it was sort of interesting. Everybody felt a little bit strange that there was this other group doing something else. But once we got here, it really felt then we're again a smaller version of the Royal Ballet here. So
now I want to ask you, you've just mentioned Balanchine, Wielden, Ashton, Macmillan. Stylistically, the company, the spectrum is so broad, and I would love for you to tell me a little bit about how you get from that pure classicism, right, to all the way to the other end of the spectrum. And I'm thinking specifically of Crystal Pite, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how do these dancers translate that movement? Is it something in the methodology, in the coaching? Tell me a little bit about how you get there.
Yeah, I think things have changed very much with the way people are trained at the school. at a time, when I was at the school, it was very much focused on the classical ballet technique, and that was it. And the rep of the Royal Ballet, which was, Ashton and Macmillan really at that time. And in the last sort of 20 years, there's been a real shift in the voices that we bring into the company and also into the school. And so it's really important for them to have that knowledge and that those tools really to work with whichever choreographer comes to work with the company. And I think what I love about the ones that we've brought into the company in more recent years is they really use the dancers that are in front of them. They don't just imprint their choreography on top of them. And I think that's really important, because what's the point otherwise? What's the point in coming to the Royal Ballet if you're not going to really use that DNA that they have, that natural DNA of all the things that they've done already in their career or have trained to do. And so you see, it's very interesting how we've gained a lot from having Wayne as our resident choreographer, but I feel he would say he's gained a lot in having us as his main source of inspiration. And I think things like Wolf Works and the Dante Project wouldn't have happened anywhere else apart from with us at the Royal Ballet.
I think also it speaks to, when we think about classical ballet, we think about a rigidity. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to the level of openness and the idea that you have artists, mm-hmm. right? So regardless of, you can have technicians all day long, but you really have to have an artist to be able to open themselves up to different processes. And I think that is also shown in your dancers, from the range of the dramatic, character work that we saw today. The idea that whether it is in a postmodern absent present versus like a Manon where it's full out there, they're able to shift into that. And I think that's a part of the Royal Ballet DNA.
Yeah, I think that it was interesting when we were doing a small talk the other day, and one lady said how even in this tiny little extract we can actually quickly bring the audience into where we are in that scene, and I think it's really important. And I think what I hope to do is, we have a wonderful dancer, William Bracewell, in the company, and he won an award recently for best male dancer for this year. And he said something which I felt very grateful for that he said it. But he said, "I feel that we're all given the space to be the artists we want to be," and I think that's really important. And I think that's what I aim to do. That I think people used to think, oh, we were so rigid at the Royal Ballet; it had to be this way. There was only one way. And I think if you have come through the company and the school, and I've really made that mission to get all the dancers that come to the company, bar one or two, have come through the school all the way, either the junior school right through the upper school, or at least from the upper school. And I think all of that is there. They know what the Royal Ballet is about. So then we need to give them the space so that they can then make those roles for themselves, not be a carbon copy of the amazing Anthony Dowell or the amazing David Waller or whoever it might have been, Antoinette Sibley. It needs to be there. They need to be there over on their Titania, and I think that's really important.
I'm glad that you just said that, because I want to take a moment. It might embarrass you a little bit.
Okay.
But it's not that bad. But I think it's really important. I just want to give a little bit of your background and how you came to take this position. So you, after dancing with the Birmingham Royal Ballet, you retired in 2000. Should I not give numbers?
It's fine.
In 2000. But you trained in company management with the Royal Shakespeare Company. And after that, went back to Birmingham Royal Ballet as a company manager. Then you were appointed company manager to the Royal Ballet. I'm going somewhere with this. And then, of course, in 2012, you were appointed to artistic director. I think that's important to name and state, because oftentimes artistic directors, I always say this, artistic directors are just dancers with offices a lot of times. No, and you have a career, and then you maybe have a brilliant career, and then someone says you should be an artistic director, and there's no actual other training that goes into that. There's no management skills, conflict resolution, communication skills, none of that. And I think that one of the things that has impressed me a lot about you as a human, but also as an artistic director, is the idea that there's something underneath the artistic leadership that sees individuals, that speaks to the organization. Can you tell me a little bit about how your background specifically outside of the dance world informs your directorship?
Yeah, thank you. I think somebody said not long after I got the job and I was doing it for a couple of years, oh, you're living the dream. I was like, it was never the dream. It wasn't planned. It wasn't all set out, oh, this is what I'm going to do to aim to do this. I loved, when I was a dancer, I started to do sort of charity galas, put things together, put on a show, and I realized I loved being in the middle of that and making it all happen. And so that was why I went down the route of administration and company management, and the time away with the Royal Shakespeare Company was amazing, and they were really kind to me, and they gave me a job in the end, actually, but they actually helped me see how a company is run in a different way than I'd known as a dancer. But I think it's so important to know what everybody's role is in a company like ours, and of course I know what the dancer's role is, but to actually really know what the people who are trying to get us on stage, whether they're the administration or the wardrobe staff or the lighting or the marketing and the education and what we do with it, all of those things are so important and so integral to what we do. And if you don't have any idea of what that is, I think you're not going to be able to do the job as well as you can. And so I think it's really important that you understand those things. And we were talking earlier the other day as well that I was very lucky. A lot of people were very kind to me and gave me chances to go, and like the director of Rambert let me hang out in Rambert for a while. The Royal Shakespeare Company, the different people really helped me along the way, and so I've tried to do that now because it seems I've been there quite a long time in this role. So now there's now people that have taken over artistic directorship that I've been able to shadow me, give them opportunities to put on a small performance, do training, coaching, all different aspects of being a director, because exactly it used to be that thing, oh, you're a famous dancer, here's a job, and I feel that's really, hopefully they're all really working well now, and that's a fantastic thing.
And that leads me into what my specialty is, right? So I am looking not only at what diversity in the dance space, specifically ballet, would be, but also the culture of companies, right? We had this big flashpoint, 3 years ago, and a lot of change happened. And Kevin, I feel like you were one of the directors that were so open and interested in what do we as the Royal Ballet need to be doing in order to be a leader in the field, not only on the stage, but also behind the scenes in the shift that's happening in the landscape. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been changing. And if you look at the group of dancers that are on stage, there's a high level of diversity there, and throughout the ranks. So I would love for you to talk a little bit about some of that work and potentially your future vision.
Yeah, it's Theresa's been really helpful. We met a long time ago, didn't we? And she was somebody that I can get on the phone to and ask questions, and it's really great to have somebody like that to work alongside. And dare I say the word COVID, but the one good thing about COVID was that we had more time to talk, and which we never do. Our seasons are packed. We start and we go through from August to June, July, and then we're on a holiday, and then we're back again, and we're doing 150 performances at the Opera House, and then the touring and everything else, and all the other stuff we do. So actually to have a moment to talk, and as you say, it was everybody was talking about it at that time, but I was able to talk with the company and find ways of doing better, you know, and looking forward, and how we want to be represented, how the Royal Ballet wants to be represented, and the dancers that are in there on stage. And so it's been really fantastic. Some things we've done are looking at the repertoire and how we want to represent different ethnicities around within certain roles, and we've made some changes to that, which is great. But then it's also about what stories we want to tell moving forward as well. And you talked about Crystal Pite, and you know how amazing to tell a story about, you know, the mass immigration, the movement of people, and that was about 5 years ago when we first did that ballet flight pattern that's now become Light of Passage, but we're about to revive it again next season, and it's as true, sadly, as important a subject to talk about as it was then. But then other things like about the dancers, and you know, I was very lucky. I came from and it's interesting how you learn, you know, because I always thought, you know, I came from a really normal, you know, working class background in Yorkshire. You know, my parents didn't have loads of money, and you know, and I got through, and you know, so I can relate. But of course, that's only half the story, you know, and my parents happened to like theatre, so I was going to a theatre since I was 4 years old, and so even when I went to the Opera House for the first time, it wasn't like, oh, this place isn't for me. I just walked in aged 11 thinking this is fine, you know, whereas realizing, talking to people, understanding that it just feels like those places are, for certain groups of people, are just not for them. And so it's really important for us to really find ways to make sure it's for everyone. Great art for everyone, great ballet for everyone. And so it can start with little things, you know, and for the dancers that are already in the company, how do you want to be represented on stage? How do you want your hair to be? How do you want the color of your tights? How do you want have that conversation? And we came up with that it's not just about for people of color, it's actually for everybody. So every dancer, when they join the Royal Ballet, we talk to them, and with our wardrobe staff, and say, how would you like to be seen on stage? And of course there's costuming and there's different things that we're trying to portray, but we really want to find that way forward. So that's one of the things that we've been doing in recent years, and then it's really important to me for the school to come with us on that journey, and of course having the people in front of the students, that's important, and finding the right role models to do that. And we're struggling. We're not doing brilliantly with that, but we're trying.
I mean, it's step by step, and it does take time, and I would rather you take the time to be thoughtful about it so that it's sustainable, rather than just making a quick thing that's more performative that ends up going like poof, be gone.
Yes, yeah. And it's just to say that exactly that the relationships we've been having with choreographers. So we've got this mixed program in October, and people, if you saw it coldly, you'll think, oh, the Royal Ballet trying to tick some boxes or something. Mm-hmm. But it's actually everybody we've worked with for about 5 or 6 years in different ways, and slowly. And these are our Royal Ballet family, and that's what's important. I think, just as you say, just to go, oh right, quickly do this, oh we must do that because that looks good. It's not about that. It's finding the people that work with as well, but are from different backgrounds, different voices, so that then we can grow as well. And we do, you know, it's amazing how. Well, I invited Hoffe Schechter to come in, who's a very different choreographer, very contemporary choreographer, and one of our dancers, literally, who was a very, very classical ballet dancer, changed overnight and has become one of the great character dancers in the company because of that. And you'd think Hoffe doesn't have anything to do with that, but he gave him the freedom to be himself and to find his own voice, and that's really incredible.
Can I tell the big story?
Go on.
Okay, this is one of my favorite stories to tell, because I have this saying that I post online: look for evidence that the work is working, because I believe that sometimes our lens is focused to what's not happening, and we can't really detect what is. Okay, so it goes like this. I had noticed that the Royal Ballet's snow scene, all the point dancers were wearing blonde wigs. All of them were wearing blonde wigs. And I was like, that's interesting. You have racialized an inanimate object, right? And so I was doing these trainings with the Royal Ballet via Zoom, and Kevin was in the class, and I said, Kevin, will you stay after class, please? And he did. And I said, hey, I have a question. And he was like, what? And I said, do the wigs in the snow scene have to be blonde? And he was like, they're not blonde. And I said, but they are. And he goes, no, they're not. I said, but they are. And he goes, why are they blonde? And I said, I don't know. Do they have to be blonde? Could they be white? Could they be silver? Something that didn't attach race to this idea of purity and perfection. And so, this is what I love about you. You go like, okay, well, he goes away in meeting. And then that was in April. And then in October, we were on another call talking about something. And right before we go, he goes, wait a minute, what color were the wigs supposed to be? And I was like, white. And he goes, okay, and meeting. And then lo and behold, all the wigs in Snow now are white. And so it doesn't seem like a big thing. But for me, in the work that I do, to have a company like the Royal Ballet make a change like that is huge. And for an artistic director to, you never know if you don't ask, right? But to be open enough to even contemplate it, to then go, I don't even know what you had to do to change those wigs, right? I know that there is a physical thing of either spraying them or buying them or whatever, but how many conversations about that? That is why I really and truly feel that you are one of my partners in this work. And it's important that an organization, an institution like the Royal Ballet is a leader in that capacity. So I thank you for that publicly.
I mean, I think it's what's so good is to say because it's very hard when you have grown up in a company and from the age of 11. And so there's things that you just don't see, and so you need friends, critical friends, to just open your eyes and say, how about this? And the same, quite a while before people were really talking about it, the same thing happened with the Chinese dance in the Nutcracker. And somebody just came up to me and said, I came with my brother's girlfriend and she was Asian, and I felt embarrassed. And as soon as I had that, I thought, oh my God. And then you see it, and then you go, okay, let's change this. And Peter Wright, who's 97, got him in the studio and said, come on, let's change this. And it was a really great thing to do. And so you do need people to, because you don't want to be insular in your Royal Ballet bubble, and you need people to help you see through that sometimes.
So along with that, I think that the Royal Ballet does a lot of really impactful things for keeping, that's all right, she's all right, relevant. One of the things that I am a fangirl of your YouTube channel. If you don't follow the Royal Ballet on YouTube, you should. They have taken you behind the scenes to what it is to be a dancer, to rehearse, to hear the dancers' voices, which I think is really important, to watch them being coached. Can you tell me a little bit about how that whole project came to be? Because I think it's so valuable to the field.
Yeah, I think it started when we originally, the idea of opening that window into what we do through when we opened the first renovation of the Opera House, which is now 25 years old, and we have a studio called the Ashton Studio, and you come up if you do it, and so the idea was we'd do a tour, and so you come up onto that level and you open, and there's this studio, and there's a big glass window, and you can look into the studio, and that's part of the tour. That's the highlight sometimes. But at the beginning, the dancers were just like, there was a blind in it, and the blind would come down, and there were certain very famous dancers that would say, why are we doing this? Why are we allowing? This is not what it's about. It's about seeing what we do when the curtain goes up. But again, you chip away at it a little bit. That curtain hasn't been down for years. Nobody's ever pulled it down now. And so then what more can we do? And we started some little things. And I think, but the first thing we did one day called, what was it called? Live with the Royal Ballet or something like that. And we did a whole day. So starting from class and went through the class and then went through rehearsals. And actually it was just before we were about to open with Carbon Life, which is a Wayne piece with Mark Ronson. And we did an insight at the end of the day. But the whole day was Live with the Royal Ballet. And that then morphed into World Ballet Day. And we connected with a lot of companies around the world for that. And that's been going more than 10 years now. We're actually looking at how we're going to change that and do something different with that next year. But also these insights into how we rehearse, why we choose the ballets we do, why we work with the people we do, and then much later on we've been doing the things like when we're talking about Black Lives Matter and really getting our dancers of color to come and talk about the issues and not censor it, not just have normal conversations, which has been really fantastic. And if you come to the Opera House now, there's been another renovation which we called Open Up, and I think it really has done that. And there was this brilliant I'm going to do a bit of name dropping now, but there was this brilliant day last season. We were doing Manon, and we had this great run of Manon, and we had this performance. It was very starry. It was Marinella and Roberto Bolle, who's one of our few guests. We don't really have guest artists now, but he's been really a good person with us, and I wanted to bring him in. So we had this very starry night, great performance. We had Anna Wintour in. We had all these very famous people, and I was like, you get home and it was all fantastic. And the next day was Sunday. I was in at 9:00, and there was 2,000 kids in the Opera House running around, being creative. One of our young choreographers, Valentina, did a whole workshop on how to create a ballet and got all the kids to give him steps and tell him where to go, how to put something together. And then in another place, they were learning about costuming and they were learning about this. And the place was just alive with young people of all backgrounds just having a great time. And I think that I was like, God, could we bottle this, to show people what this is about?
What's interesting is there's the Opera House, but then you can traverse through, and you can sit down. It's a cafe. You can just hang out. It's a meeting place. You can go upstairs. And what is the glass room called?
The Paul Hamlin Hall.
The Paul Hamlin Hall, which is where some of these activities take place. But it really does feel like the people's space, and it breaks down that concept that ballet is elitist, that these space that you have to be dressed a certain way to enter them. And I think that when I was there the first time, I was like, wow, this really feels different. And then when you see people just using it as their space, you realize the potential that the building itself becomes audience development. Right? Instead of doing something, there's not an activity that needs to happen to develop your audience.
And for a long time, we've been doing schools matinees, and we bring schools in, and we have a thing called Create and Dance, and we're working across the country, and we have a big program that actually we just celebrated recently, because it was a link with Dance Theatre of Harlem, and Arthur Mitchell came and helped us set up this program about going into schools.
We're so. I was going there next. Take it away.
But before we go back to that, what was interesting, we've been doing a lot of those different things, and it's just because I said Paul Hamlin. So Paul Hamlin was he was a publisher, and he wanted arts for everybody, and we used to do the Paul Hamlin Week, which would be kids coming in to see performances, and then since he died, his wife has been doing this the Christmas treat, and it's for families to come and see the Nutcracker, or very, very little prices, but just getting everybody in. But we did, for the first time, a relaxed performance of the Nutcracker. So we had the lights up, and we had very little had to be changed, but we have a man working with us on access for the next 2 years, and had worked in different places around the world, and so told us how to do this. And we had a little introduction, just introducing some of the characters, because we found out that it's better to do spoilers when you're doing a relaxed performance. And we had the most amazing time, and I went out fun afterwards, and people just coming up to me saying, we can never do anything as a family, because we could never go to the ballet because, one child is maybe, has some special needs and the other child doesn't. And so it's just sort of impossible. And just to see how that happened, was incredible. But so we're doing that again this year with Cinderella. But yes, we did Chance to Dance, and it's over 30 years old. And it started off with Mr. Mitchell coming over, and then there was an exchange in dancers as well, performing with the company. But really, we go out into normal, we call them state schools. I think would you say public schools here?
Yes.
Yeah. But and we're now doing it across the country. And what we've changed in the last few years, which I'm not sure if you know, that we've also linked in with local ballet schools in different parts of the country.
Yes.
So that great, we go in and say, wow, this is ballet, it's creative, you can do this, and kids get excited, and then we have to go away because we have to go somewhere else. And so how do we, and then they maybe think, we'll go to a local ballet school, but then it's just very much doing little exams and sort of the Billy Elliot type of ballet school. So we're talking to the local teachers and getting them into the way of thinking of how you bring creativity into training young kids, and that's been really a step forward.
Look for evidence that the work is working.
Yes, yeah.
And it's really important. I want to clarify that this is something that I learned in working with the Royal Ballet, is that when we were talking about diversity in the UK, it has more to do with class as well as race. So it's not simply race, right? So that was an important thing for me, because when we were having a conversation, I was like, we're talking about two like sort of parallel things. So the idea that when you're going into public schools in the States, we have a visual of what that might mean or who might be in those schools. But when we're talking about the UK, this is a broadly diverse population of children and families. How are we doing on time? We got 3 minutes. Is there anything else you want to say? I'm afraid to open it up for questions, because then we'll get carried away and then we'll go over and then we'll throw the whole schedule off. Kevin, is there anything you would like to
Just that it's been fantastic being here, and we're looking forward to, all those things we were talking about, and I think having those role models within the company, I don't know if you would know, but Joseph Sissons, who's here with the company on this trip, he's just been made a principal dancer, which I'm really thrilled about. And of course, for me, all these, everybody that you see, I've taken from the school and brought through the company. So it's a great moment. And last week when we had that moment in the office, I always have this thing that I don't, because some places they do promotions on stage and things like that, and I actually personally don't. It doesn't work for me, because I feel we've hopefully done it together this moment, and so I think it's a really special moment to be together and say, okay, this is it, you're now a principal dancer. But with Joseph, he's been amazing about sort of coming, to use the word, on the journey and looking for ways to help us open up and be the right sort of company that we want to be. And so we're going to do a gala together called Legacy, which we're going to curate, and that's going to happen in October, and we've got dancers from different companies around the world, different dancers of color, and really just celebrating how many fantastic artists are around dancing with great companies now, and that's really something to be proud of, I think.
Thank you, Kevin. Give Kevin O'Hara a hand. Thank you so much. And there's a lot of dance yet to happen here at the Pillow. Take advantage of it. And yeah, have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.